Oh, wait. Mike Polydorus on the road again.
Yes.
Mike's on the road again.
So if my volume is a little down, you'll realize that we're doing a remote recording. I'm in Kansas City this week. Yeah, that's right, Paul. I'm looking to see if I see Taylor Swift at the Chiefs game tonight.
There you go. And Mike's on the road for Ticket to Ride. Well, not for Ticket to Ride, but he's been kind enough to do a recording or record this episode. So this will be a little different than our usual episode for all of you listening, because normally we would talk about the weekend that just was on a Monday. But here we are on a Thursday with official Swift movie officially it's opened. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Swift, what this weekend looks like, some of the pitfalls and anomalies that are involved in this release, and how is it going to be tracked? How much is it going to earn? When are we going to get the numbers? What kind of numbers are we going to get to, and when are we going to get them? And that's a word salad. But Mike and I, following this very closely. And Mike, do you mind if I go over the history very quickly of concert film performances?
I think that's a great idea, because that's going to give you some context about the numbers we actually start talking about.
Yeah, so I want to set the stage, Mike. Get it? Set the stage for Taylor Swift. So the top grossing domestic cum for a music concert film is Justin Bieber. Never Say Never, with a domestic gross of $73 million. At number 2, Michael Jackson's This Is It with $72.1. I mean, those movies are basically neck and neck. However, the global gross for Michael Jackson, This Is It, was $262.5 million.
So here's the thing, Paul. Let's talk about. I would say it's a slam dunk that Taylor Swift will become the highest grossing concert film domestically of all time by the time Sunday morning rolls around.
You're really going out on a limb, but I think you're right. And then for the opening weekend, got to give it up for Hannah Montana, Miley Cyrus concert tour. Way back in 2008, over the first weekend in February, that film opened at $31.1 million. $31.1 million for Hannah Montana, non-adjusted for inflation at all. So when we're looking at the opening weekend, I mean, clearly this is going to obliterate the opening weekend record. And for the number of theaters that this is in, it's going to be around 3,800, but it's going to 3,850, but it'll probably go up. Michael Jackson's This Is It, previous record holder for the number of opening lokes at 3,481. So we are in a bit of uncharted territory. But who knew Justin Bieber, topping the chart so far? I mean, that was 2011, by the way. But that was a pretty impressive performance by that film.
I remember when both the Hannah Montana movie dropped and the Justin Bieber movie dropped, it caught everyone by surprise. Both of those no one really saw those grosses coming. An eye-opener, to your point, Paul, of what a concert movie can do. I mean, more recently, concert movies have lived in more of that event cinema area. And, the folks over at Trafalgar are fantastic in this market space. Recently we had the Coldplay concert do $1 million. We had 21 Pilots do $1 million. And then, of course, over the last probably, 5-6 years, the gold standard is the BTS concert movies. And, I think, I don't have it in front of me. I don't know if you have the worldwide gross on those, but I mean, those numbers were, wasn't that almost $70 million of...
Yeah, you're correct. The BTS movie actually played, I think, for one day.
Yes.
And made close to $70 million worldwide.
So that's kind of the gold standard of where we are right now. So clearly T Swift is coming out, and we're going to be looking at an astronomical number that's coming in from a worldwide grossing standpoint. Domestically, clearly all eyes are on that as well. As we're recording on Thursday, they added Thursday shows. It'll be interesting to see. Those are kind of just like the Thursday previews that most movies get. I'm sure that gross will then get added into the opening weekend.
Yeah, that'll be folded in. That's how you guarantee perhaps that $100 million domestic opening. I mean, short of that, prior to that announcement, this film was supposed to open 6 p.m. on Friday. No Thursday previews, no matinees on Friday. That would have definitely limited, I think, that gross certainly for Friday, and that would have impacted the entire weekend.
Yeah, and there's pent-up demand for this film. The premiere that they had last night at the Grove was unprecedented. The entire shopping center was shut down for the entire day. All the roads around the Grove shut down at 3 p.m. I hear, I was not there because I was here in Kansas City, but I hear it was a madhouse of people. The folks that I spoke to that were at the premiere said it was fantastic. So I think
we helicoptered in on my side. We were able to helicopter in. I'm kidding. Of course, Mike, I want to ask you something. And this, I get this, two different views on this. A lot of people are saying this is a game-changing event, that this will lead to a landslide or a outpouring of more movies like this. That, in my estimation, that could be true in terms of the concert genre. But lest anyone thinks that a $100 million opening from a concert film is going to happen every year, what do you think about that?
I think that Taylor Swift, this film at this time, is a cultural zenith. In other words, timing couldn't be better. She's coming off of a tour that was, in the zeitgeist. She from a cultural standpoint, she's never been hotter. So this is probably the pinnacle of what a movie like this can do.
Would you call it an outlier?
I would call it an outlier. I think, as we were just talking about, like something like Coldplay. Coldplay's, just did 2 nights at the Rose Bowl that they sold out. Production value very similar to the Taylor Swift. And when Trafalgar had their latest concert, in theaters, it did $1 million. So I think you need to, it's got to be in context. That's why I said it was really important for you to list those numbers, because we shouldn't get out ahead of ourselves and think every movie can go out and do this. The next movie up, of course, is Beyoncé, which AMC is doing again. That's going out on December 1st. I'm sure that gross is going to be great, but the issue we're going to run into from a perception standpoint is if that movie doesn't go out and do $100 million opening weekend, everyone's going to look at it in comparison to the Taylor Swift movie, which is not fair, because if the Beyonce movie goes out and does half of that, does $50 million opening weekend, that's a huge number for the first week of December. I mean, if we go back and look at first week of December grosses, that's probably the highest gross ever for a film. But given where it's going to live in this ecosystem, it's going to look at as paling in comparison to what this is. So, and your point is well taken, that as always we need to put things in perspective.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, people are getting out, as you always say, over their skis, or they're on a sugar high with this movie, which is great. By the way, we'll take this movie all day and the Beyonce film. So great for the industry, and I think we need to talk about, because you obviously work with exhibitors. That's what Paper Airplane does. You're an award-winning company that does this. And I know that with the Gentle Minions meme last year, whatever it was called, that it was... I don't know that theater owners love that situation, but I think this is quite different but it is going to be a concern. I think you're going to have people dancing in the aisles, breaking all traditional protocols of behavior in a movie theater, which I think is actually cool, and it makes sense for this movie. What are exhibitors concerned about right now, or what are they happy about? Conversely, a lot of people buying popcorn this weekend, but it's unprecedented to encourage all that activity in the theater.
Well, I think it's really important from a communal standpoint. In other words, we have, as an industry, been preaching the community and the communal experience of going to the movies. And with this movie, patrons are being encouraged to dance and sing. I think the one thing is they're being encouraged not to stand on the seats and dance. That is I've seen that. Like, in other words, please don't block the view of the person behind you.
Right.
But all of that being said, I think it's really important this shows the magic of the movies. And this shows why watching it together in an auditorium with 200 other Taylor fans at the same time, you've exchanged the bracelets just like you've done in the parking lot at whatever SoFi or wherever she's played. It's a big deal from that standpoint. And I think it opens up avenues from a movie-going experience that probably, to your point, there's a traditional way of thinking about going to the movies. I sit in my seat, I'm quiet, I look at the guy who's crunching his popcorn too loudly, give him a little evil eye.
Yep.
And in this case, it's more of we encourage everybody to go and have fun. And that,
right,
to me, opens up other kinds of entertainment. And, for the movie theaters to differentiate themselves from the home, which they've done a great job of doing, this is just kind of continues that evolution. So long term, I think it's great. Will there be people, traditional moviegoers who end up this weekend that are irritated because somebody's dancing in front of them? Probably, but deal with it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it really does open up this idea of the movie theater. I mean, this is not a quiet place, nor will it be a quiet place at the multiplex this weekend. Very different, because we were taught growing up, there were no phones, Mike, in the theater when we were growing up.
That is true.
But it is the protocol is to be quiet, don't disturb. Silence is golden. That is not the case this weekend. I think too, this is great because on so many levels, this is going to have a positive halo effect. Number one, think of all the Swifties and others who may not have been going to the movie theater at all.
Well, and that's a really good point, because I do want to bring up something else that has been happening behind the scenes, and that is, the studios have all recognized that, and guess what? They're all lobbying to have their trailers playing in front of this. And exactly to your point is, there's a good chunk of the audience that aren't typical moviegoers, and they are going to be exposed to some of the upcoming films from the holiday season, and that's going to, hopefully bring these Swifties back to see a more traditional movie.
Absolutely. I mean, you've got in-theater marketing, you've got the one sheets with the dates on them, you've got the trailers getting people excited, you've got all that popcorn and soda being sold. And I have to say, and I spoke about this with our good friend Sarah Whitten over at CNBC in an article she did. Some were saying Universal missed a good bet by moving their Exorcist Believer film to the 6th, that the Exor-Swift phenomenon would have been good for the Exorcist Believer. I say no way. Would we be talking about The Exorcist if it were opening this weekend?
No.
And it would be guaranteed a number 2 debut, by the way, not a number 1, which
I don't think whether it's number 1 or number 2 really would matter. Here's where it would matter, unfortunately, and that is inventory, screen space, the number of seats, the demand this weekend for the Taylor Swift movie. Basically, if you look at, your local multiplex, if there are 12 screens, 8 of them, are booked with Taylor this weekend. So where Exorcist would have ran into problems is just, would there have been enough seats at the right time? And again, it's all about the right time. Would there have been enough seats to be able to get to that $27 million gross that they got to? By the way, we haven't even talked about that. Biggest opening ever for an Exorcist movie. And I know there was some disappointment because people were hoping that it was going to have a 3 in front of it. But just a great opening for that film. And to your point, Paul, I think if that movie was coming out this week, it would have been fun. You could have called it Exor-Swift or whatever you wanted to call it. But I'm not sure from a business standpoint it was the right place to be.
It wouldn't be Barbenheimer. I mean, what Swiftie is going to want to go see a film with 2 potential Swifties being, just terrorized by the devil? I mean, it just, I didn't see the crossover, and I'm only half joking, but I mean, I think that there wouldn't have been that kind of crossover. Plus, there wasn't enough time to develop the Exor-Swift phenomenon, which I don't think would have been a phenomenon. I think what the bigger issue with that is that Universal is going all in on the Exorcist brand to the tune of $400 million reportedly. But I thought that was a fine opening. I don't know. If a movie opens at 27, Mike, instead of 30 million, is that a disappointment? I mean, if it had opened it in the mid-teens, I would say, yeah, that's a pretty bad debut. But, it underperformed according to some metrics by what, $3 million for the weekend?
But I mean, when you look at, to your point, Paul, a $27 million opening, that's a really solid opening. And again, we tend in our business to get in over our skis a little bit. And going back to Taylor Swift, and you mentioned Barbenheimer, and I know that, between, Barbie and Oppenheimer, people are probably saying, well, Barbie did this, Oppenheimer did that. Why couldn't Exorcist and Taylor Swift do that? I think a little bit of the difference on this weekend, and I mentioned the seat inventory, and I guess you could say that, well, Barbie and Oppenheimer managed to figure it out. The difference is it's not summer. We're in the fall. And then the second piece of that is that the Oppenheimer Barbie effect kind of, to your point, morphed into one, and it became a singular kind of thing. I don't see that happening here. And the other thing is that the Taylor Swift, since the announcement of that movie, when she dropped that Instagram post at like a bomb on the industry.
That's right.
But that has been the sole focus of what's going on. So unfortunately, I just think any other film in the marketplace at this particular time, it's just one of those where the air is going to get sucked out of the room a little bit.
I was just going to say that. And that's exactly, I mean, from a PR standpoint or advertising or a social media impressions point of view, you're just going to get steamrollered by Taylor Swift. So, that's very interesting. One thing else I want to talk about too, Mike, is, what is the music industry going to take away from this? I've been thinking about this a lot because I love music. I know you do too. But it just shows that, an industry, the movie theaters that were written off a couple of years ago by so many people, not us, by the way, that now the music industry is probably in boardrooms at all the big labels and elsewhere. They're going, how can we utilize this incredible leverage and societal imprint, or however you want to say it, the influencer that is the movie theater? How can we use this to our advantage? And I will bet you, Mike, people will go home and download more music, not just of Taylor Swift, but other artists that they're interested in. This creates a halo effect on many other businesses, including those who create bracelets, T-shirts, again, popcorn and soda, ride sharing. I mean, if you think about the global footprint of Taylor Swift, and if you were to combine, I can't do the math on this, but because I don't have the numbers, but if you were to take her concert tour revenues, ad spend, not ad spend, but what consumers are spending to buy either food or drink or bracelets or T-shirts or music, we're talking billions of dollars here. But look at how the movie theater has become instrumental in that. And again, an industry that was written off a couple of years ago. Everyone wants to get in on the big screen, Mike. Everyone.
I have heard that those conversations are definitely taking place. I have heard that there are a few other big name artists that are looking at doing a similar kind of release. Don't be surprised if you don't hear something about that in the first quarter. But this goes back to the question you asked at the top, and that is, what are the expectations we as an industry should have for these kind of projects? And when you look at something like the Eras Tour, which is the pinnacle of success on this, at what point does it cross over from being an event cinema one night only to it qualifies to be something that should get a pure theatrical run or a deeper theatrical run? And I think, like anything else in our industry, that's going to evolve and that's going to kind of show itself for what it is. But we've been talking about this, Paul, for the last year, and that is looking at companies like Trafalgar, looking at what they've already been, they've been laying the groundwork. So as big as this is, I don't think it should be underestimated. When Trafalgar goes out with a band like 21 Pilots and can do $1 million on one night, and that to me tells you that there's a model, there is a business in exactly what you're saying, and that is the record companies taking their artists, promoting them on the big screen, creating more ticket sales live, creating more music downloads, just creating more excitement and enthusiasm for the artist by doing the same thing that our industry does, and that is using the theatrical window to launch the other windows that they have.
Exactly. It's the engine that drives everything. And if you look at A24's release of Stop Making Sense Remastered, $4 million is a great number for that film. And that was sort of that was an appetizer in a way for Taylor Swift, people going and seeing, not that it's necessarily the same audience per se, but still the idea that a concert movie, and particularly with that IMAX component for a movie that's 30, 40 years old, and a great one at that, is pretty amazing. So music and movies coming together.
Yeah, and it's again, this is an eye-opener, as you mentioned, to all these record companies that, before I take my artist's next big concert and go directly to the streaming platform, maybe I'll take a stop at the movie theater, collect a little revenue there, elevate the profile of this, and then I'll go to my streaming friends.
Exactly, and especially with the strikes the way they are, still in flux, if you will.
Yeah.
That I think content like this collectively, we talk about Taylor Swift being an outlier, this movie, and Beyonce maybe being only the next biggest artist that could do this. That collectively this could become a bigger segment of the movie release calendar and of the box office collectively. If you have many more of these Trafalgar and Fathom releases, events, cinema, music, presentations in theaters, that's great. On top of that, we don't know what other innovations and what other verticals, outside of the music industry, maybe, in the comedy realm. There have been a lot of big comedy movies, Kevin Hart, of course, and others. So I'm just curious, what is the next frontier? Maybe it's a combination of many of these entertainment verticals.
Look, we've tried Broadway musicals, and, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and again, it's all about the content and what it actually is. But I want to go back to the musicians for a second. They do bring an element to this business that the movies themselves don't have from a marketing standpoint, and that is when you have somebody like Taylor Swift who has hundreds of millions of followers, and with a single post, she can then, basically sell $200 million worth of tickets. That's a value proposition that doesn't necessarily exist, because remember, we talk about traditional P&As, and you've got to spend $25, $30 million to market a movie to be able to get it open. Imagine if you have an artist who can just, with a single tweet, Instagram post, Facebook post, all of a sudden can accomplish the same thing that 20 or 30 million can do in an eye blink.
You're so right. And it shows you that much has been said of the fact that, she went around traditional studios. Well, traditional studios, this isn't really, I don't mean to say it like this, she doesn't need a market. She is a marketing team of her own. Mike, if Taylor Swift endorsed our Ticket to Ride podcast, what would that do to our numbers? It'd be insane. I don't know that would happen. But but you're right. Once she anoints you, that's it. She doesn't need traditional marketing.
Again, there are very few of those people that have that kind of zeitgeist. Taylor Swift is one. Oprah Winfrey is one. These are people who, when they say something to their audience listens.
But social media is key, right, Mike? Because
social media
is a direct channel. If we went back 30 years, it would be very different.
Well, look, I can tell. But it's also the trust that her audience or the audience has in whether it's Taylor or Oprah or who it might be.
Yeah.
Because, look, I've worked on movies, and the talent should go nameless, but they will come into the room and they're like, I've got 6 million followers, and they'll do whatever, and they do a post and you sell 12 tickets, and the idea being they don't have that same they may have a lot of followers, but they don't have the same relationship that Taylor Swift or Oprah Winfrey or whoever that is has with their audience.
That's right.
And that is that's a key part of making these things work.
And it's also how you can turn this around in 6 weeks. I mean, this was announced, the Taylor Swift was announced, I believe, at the end of August. Here it is, mid-October. Beyonce announced basically on October 1st. She'll be in theaters on December 1st. So this is a very, the movie industry, traditional releases is like moving a tanker ship around. It's like it takes, you set the release date and then you do the teaser trailer, and it takes months and sometimes years.
I would say, Paul, you and I actually touched on this a couple of months ago when we talked about the advantages that digital cinema brought to the industry. And one of the advantages is being able to pivot quickly and move quickly. And in the case of these two projects, the content was done, it was ready to go. And again, the marketing by each of them was, if Beyonce drops a note and says, my tickets are going on sale, December 1st, and all of a sudden TMZ has picked it up, you know what? You don't need a long runway. You've accomplished everything you've needed right then and there. Same thing with Taylor when she did, what she did. So it just changes, you have to look at these concert films a little differently than you look at a traditional film. The other thing is, we talk about the numbers for the weekend. We don't have any comps to...
there are no comps.
There are no comps. So everyone's going to be flying a little bit blind. I think when the numbers start leaking out on Friday, I think you need to be very... I think everyone out there should take them for what they are, and that is, we're still figuring it out. There's nothing to... I always joke around and I say, most times by 8 a.m. on a Friday morning, I can pretty much I can project a weekend because I've got comps I can look at and I can see where it is. On this one, I am not going to be projecting any kind of number because I don't know what the Saturday. I don't know what Saturday looks like to Friday, and we don't know what Sunday is going to look like to Saturday. So it's going to be a difficult way to look at and see what these numbers really mean.
And it's all about the comps in that case, and there are no. It'd be like if you built a house on the moon, what would you charge for it?
Well, that's the whole thing. We don't know, and the fact that they added Thursday out of the kind of out of the blue, that changes the equation a little bit, not a lot, but but to me, when you look at the whole thing, it's like, it's great we're in uncharted territory because it's not the same old, and it's so much fun that the entire world of the entertainment world is looking at our industry this weekend. I think that's great.
It's great. So, we'll leave it there, Mike. I know you're traveling, and I appreciate you being on Ticket to Ride, the Comscore podcast, with me, one of your co-hosts, Paul DeGarabedian, Senior Media Analyst for Comscore, and Mike Polydorus, President of Paper Airplane Media. Thank you for joining me, and we'll see if your predictions come true for Swift this weekend.
The other thing I think everybody should know is you're going to be seeing a lot of Paul on TV over this weekend. He is the most popular guy in Hollywood right now. Rumor has it there was a camera crew that was like trying to find his house to do an interview the other day. So
it's true. It's true. They showed up. I had to make sure to get their credentials. They could have been casing my house, trying to steal my Taylor Swift vinyl collection.
There you go.
Yeah, it's going to be very busy. And Mike, you're going to be very busy as well, doing what you do for the movie theaters, which they couldn't do without you. So I think it's amazing. So thank you for joining me on this very Swift episode.
I like that.
A Ticket to Ride.
There you go. Paul, have a good one.
Mike.
Take care.
You too, buddy. Have a good one. Bye.
Okay. Bye.
She's got a ticket to ride, but she don't